Honorable Chairperson on the dais, dignitaries on the dais, and my dear friends. Yes, it's true. We have seen only one side of the coin. Whenever we speak about the term child, we remember only Johnson child. Pink, pink, very cute. We feel like holding the child, cuddling the child, etc. Or else, if ever we speak about child, we remember a child pressed ironed uniform with nutritious food in its box, caring parents, soft bed to sleep, etc. But it is not true. Often we might have, on the road, might have seen some children who will be trying to sell something closer to the signal lights, or some children may be helping a mechanic in the mechanic shops, or you may feel your heart melts when you find a child working in the cotton fields, etc. Can you just imagine, or I can say it is unimaginable to think about a child who can be a soldier, who can be used as a prostitute, or who can be used as a suicide bomber, etc. So what sort of exploitation is taking place? We can record so many sort of exploitations of the child. So what are the exploitations? First, let me just take into consideration first three. That is first, child prostitution. What is child prostitution? So child prostitution means it is generally a person, a party other than the child benefits from a commercial transaction in which the child is made available for sexual purpose, either an exploiter or intermediary who controls or oversees the child activities for profit or an abuser. So for child prostitution, a child may be abducted, or the parents may be promised to get a different job or the upliftment of his life or a better future, etc. His child may be threatened. So many things might have taken place. I can take another sort of exploitation, that is child pornography. So internet is available to any person who has a telephone line and a computer. So it is inexpensive, but what is the amount of the trauma a child faces in the case of child pornography? And next is child trafficking and sexual slavery. From every year, so many children have been abducted, kidnapped from several places. They will be transported, they will be sent to some other places for sexual slavery. And it is unimaginable and disheartening for a child, small child. It is fascinating to have a gun in his hand. He may dream of having a gun in his hand, but active gun? Can you just imagine a child is acting as a soldier? He is forced to act as a soldier who has to stand in front lines of the warfields. So not alone that he is used as a soldier, his service will be used as several things, like that of a porter, messenger, etc. Spies, cooks, used as a spy or cook, etc. So it is really disheartening to know about it. So next, that is another sort of exploitation, maybe children is used as spies. And often everybody know that whatever a child observes, he knows to reproduce it very nicely, so that a child is used as a spy, and nobody can suspect that a child can be used as a spy, so that they get wherever information is necessary, they get the information. And child, it is the sorrow or the sad situation of a child which will be caught in the armed conflict. They become refugees, internationally displaced. When a war erupts in a country, the most affected persons are either women or the children. It happens that it will hinder the development of the personality, and it hinders the right of the child to be nurtured and protected. So often the thing happens that when war erupts in a country, the child may become a road refugee or displaced persons. And if at all he goes to another country, it happens that it is the thing that the government parties, if ever they are the parties or the signatories to CRC, that is Convention of Rights of Child, or if ever they have 1951 UN Convention, that is a Refugee Convention, and a 1967 protocol relating to the status of the refugees, they have to oblige to give refuge to the child. They may not do it. So it is the children who are suffered by this war, and children often used as drug traffickers, And it is sad to know that children are nowadays used for organ transplantation. So what will happen means in the process of that operation or organ transplantation, the child can be maimed or it may succumb to the injuries. And next I would like to focus your attention on children as beggars. We find that there are so many hereditary beggars. The parents are there, they push the children to begging, and they have made it as a industry, and they feel that it is the profitable industry. And moreover, there can be certain sort of rackets where children are abducted, kidnapped or maimed in order to make themselves feasible to, that is handicapped, so that sympathy will be there. So there can be abuses in private institutions like that of orphanages or in madrasas, etc. And we find street children also. It is also a sort of a problem because there are certain children who run away from their home because of their assignment, homework, etc. So many reasons are there, and there are so many 100 million children live and work on the streets. Begging, what is their work? Begging, peddling foods, cigarettes, internet, shining shoes, etc. So that's also a problem. And my study is highly focused on child labor. Child labor is an important indicator of the violation of child's right. So they are losing so many of their rights. So the right to protection from harmful influences, opportunity to participate fully in the family, cultural and social life, right of survival, they are abused and exploited. So these are all the several sorts of exploitations I have noted. Apart from these exploitations, there may be certain other exploitations of the child. That is, for example, the children are used as camel jackies, etc. I have not noted those things. So what is being done is the next question. So it is the Convention of the Rights of the Child, which was actually, it has become very famous for the reason that it is the first legally binding international instrument to incorporate the full range of human rights relating to the children, civil and political rights, as well as economic, social and cultural rights. So I am just giving the headings of it, or the rights given, because the children are given the right to survival, to develop to this fullest, to protection from harmful influences, protection from abuse and exploitation, to participate fully in the family and social life. These are all the things given by the CRC, that is Convention on Rights of the Child. Guided by the framework of CRC, you have Amnesty International and certain other institutions. So next, let me just give my focus upon ILO on child labor. So ILO has given several things pertaining to, that is, in its very first session in 1919, the ILO adopted a convention, that is Convention number 5, providing for minimum age for admission to industrial development. This was followed by a number of other conventions. The most important of it, the very important of it is Convention 138 on minimum age adopted in the year 1973 and Convention 182, that is worst forms of child labor, adopted in 1991. Convention, that is 138, stressed more upon the age of the child who has to work, that is effective abolition of child labor by specifying minimum age, and that is 182 convention stressed more upon effective measures to secure prohibition and elimination of worst forms of child labor. So under the purview of this convention, so many sorts of worst forms of exploitation, like that of slavery, child prostitution, or using them as soldiers, or using them as for pornographic performances, all these things come under the purview of this. So empowered by this that is ILO, International Program on Elimination of Child Labor is a major action program given by ILO. So this is initiated by the government of Germany, and it is a major technical assistance program, and India is the first country to join IPEF program. So how about IPEF in India? In India, IPEF, the aim of IPEF in India is that to strengthen the capacity of the government, employers, workers, organizations and NGOs to develop and implement measures geared towards the prevention of child labor. It is to withdraw the children from the hazardous work and the providing provisions of alternatives, and improvement of working conditions as a transitional measure towards elimination of child labor. So next I shift to the position in India. What is the position in India regarding child exploitation or that is guaranteeing of children right? It's obvious, we in India we have the constitutional provisions, but is first let me just discuss about the directive principles of state policy. It says 39F is very important, where it says that the health and safety of workers, men and women and the children of tender age, and children shouldn't be abused, and children should be given opportunity to and facilities to develop in a healthy manner and in conditions of freedom and dignity. And Article 24 says that no child below 24 years shall be employed to work in any factories or mines. 23 speaks abolishes, that is trafficking human beings and beggar, which is an offence punishable with law. Apart from that, we have several legislations which are enacted by the Government of India, that is Factories Act in the year 1948, Mines Act, where it says that a child below 16 years shouldn't be appointed, Employment of Children's Act, Immoral Traffic Prevention Act, a criminal law, Child Marriage Restraints Act, Juvenile Justice Act, etc. So how about certain other legislations? In order to find out why this child exploitation is taking place, a committee was appointed, that is the committee appointed by Gurupada Swami Committee. So they made a study and they gave a report that for all this exploitation, the poverty is the main reason for child exploitation. So based upon the recommendations of Gurupada Swami Committee, a law came into existence, and Gurupada Swami Committee was set up in the year 1979, and after that they gave the report, and after that a legislation was framed by the government, that is Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act. It speaks about the rehabilitation of the children working in hazardous occupations and process in the first instance. So the action plan outlined in the policy for tackling this problem. So government has accordingly is taking certain steps to tackle this problem. So the government is trying for the strict enforcement of legislative provisions along with simultaneous rehabilitative measures. State governments, which are having appropriate implementing authorities, these authorities will regularly do inspections and raids and detect certain sort of violations. So like that, the coverage of this has done in 12 districts in 1988 and 100 districts in the 9th plan and 250 districts in the 10th plan. So there are work by some other authorities, organizations like that of UNICEF, UNDP and state governmental organizations, other non-NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and there are certain trade unions or certain associations, that is Consortium of Employers Association for the elimination of child labor, and 6 important trade unions have joined together and they have tried their level best to avoid or abolish or let me say regulate this child labor. So over and above, there are certain civil society organizations like civil professional associations like Lions Club, media, panchayat bodies, Red Cross associations, religious organizations which are trying their hard to to work upon this child labor. So these are all the things I was just discussing with you, that is international law pertaining to child exploitation, Indian law, that is constitutional position, and I was discussing certain acts. During the year 1996, the court has decided, given the direction in MC Mehta versus State of Union of India that a child shouldn't be employed. If at all any person employs a child, he has to be fined, that is 20,000 rupees, and that 20,000 rupees should be given to the child as a for his development like that. So now the next question is, it's all by the government and legislations, through legislations or by NGOs. What you and I can do is the question. So always when we speak about any exploitation, any problem, etc., we just expect the government to do everything. What you and I can do is the question. So for this, I have noted certain points. Whether it is feasible, possible, I do not know. We have to wait and see. So first is that colonies, no child is detained as domestic help. In such cases, counsel the employers if possible, to put them into schools or admit them to any of the centers opened by the district administration. If possible, sponsor a child for either education in the normal school by providing fees if it is a private school, uniform, books and other accessories. In case of children who could not complete their high school aged more than 14, sponsor them to skill training through any skill training institute or any other employers organization who can give them skill training and also employ them in due course. Very, very important. Last but the most important, give awareness. People do not know about exploitation. People do not know what has to be done to a child. So, last but the most important thing is that try to create awareness among the youth. It is for you. Have discussions, symposiums, seminars to eradicate exploitation of children because, as you know, children are the future of our nation. Awareness and action plan is the need of the day. I thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity. Within 12 minutes, I have covered my paper. I thank for patient hearing. I thank one and all. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Thanks for the informative presentation and also for completing it within the time allotted. Well, before I thank you for patient learning, I have one more speaker to introduce. Last but not the least, the presentation by Ms. Sridevi. The topic is human rights and right to abortion. With the permission of the speaker, and in order to keep you held for some more time for another 15 minutes, I would like to suggest that this topic is very debatable and interesting. The issues that should bother you as she presents the paper, according to me, are: whose right is this right to abortion? Is there a human right to abortion? Does it belong to women? If that belongs to women, what happens to a right to creation of man, without which there is moksha, there is no moksha in Hindu law? I wish, my dear students, to receive this paper on these lines and appreciate. With these words, may I now call upon Ms. Sridevi for her presentation.
Good morning, everybody. To begin with, I quote D.D. Basu, "Human rights are those minimum rights which every individual must have against the state or other public authority by virtue of his being a member of human family, irrespective of any other consideration," unquote. Article 23 of International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights states, "Every person has right to marry and found a family." Article 10 of International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights declares rights relating to motherhood and childhood, marriage and the family. Again, I refer to a case law, that is Air India versus Nagesh Mirza, where the Supreme Court has opined that every woman has right to motherhood and conceive a child which cannot be taken away by ordinary legislations like Air Corporation Act 1955. With the above few example, I am going to speak on my paper, that is Rights of Women, Right to Conceive and Abortion. No doubt, today it is well known that every woman has right to marry and right to conceive, including the right to abort, which is now legalized under the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971. I refer a very important case, that is T. Sarita versus T. Venkata Subbaiah, where Andhra Pradesh High Court has held that women is not a vehicle to carry the load whenever the man wants. India is a land where children are born not by choice but by chance and by God's grace. That is the reason why women has no right either to say no to conceive or say no to abort. Indian society is customarily a male-dominant society wherein women are under the control of men, right from the childhood under the father. adulthood under the husband, and in the old age under the son. So she never enjoys freedom. In Indian society, every married couple, especially a husband, always expects children to be born lest he will not get salvation. That too, he anticipates a male child only. If female child is born, it will be killed later or in the womb itself. I mean here feticide. Feticide and infanticide are very common in India. Earlier, say in 1900 and later and before 1950s, marriages were arranged when the child was in the cradle itself. And later, before puberty, marriages were arranged. So when she was about to conceive the child after puberty, her body was not strong enough to take care of the child, but still she was forced to conceive the child. As a result, if you just go back, say 70 years back, every woman was conceiving and delivering more than a dozen children. Do you think it is by a wish? No, definitely not, because it was the male's wish. Even today, situation has not changed. Women are forced to conceive, of course not a dozen or so, but the present women are not interested to conceive as soon as they get married. But Indian society is such that if a woman does not get conceived within a year of her marriage, people take her the label of barren. Husband forces, mother-in-law harasses, sister-in-law troubles. What is the position of a woman in this vicious circle of husband, mother-in-law and sister-in-law? She is alone. At this stage, I would like to submit that the laws like MTP Act, Hindu Marriage Act or any other laws for that matter does not come for her help. Abortion right, a part of women's right. So as all we know that MTP Act permits any woman to get aborted unwanted child, and the rules of MTP Act are applicable only up to the 20 weeks of pregnancy. Up to 12 weeks of pregnancy, only one doctor may form the opinion on the applicability of the rules. About 12 weeks of pregnancy and up to 20 weeks, the decision about the abortion should be taken by two doctors. And the Act also imposes restrictions that all operations must be performed in approved premises. However, the pregnancy can be terminated at any stage if it is necessary to save the life of the mother. And in such cases, the decision can be taken by a single doctor alone and the operation can be performed at any place whether approved or not. Termination of pregnancy is justified only if it is done with the consent of the pregnant woman, unless she is a minor or a lunatic one, in which cases the consent of a guardian is required. Consent of the husband of a married woman is not necessary. One of the worst things in a society is that craving for a male child. And if a woman gets a girl child, husband family harasses the woman and warns her if next time she doesn't get a boy child, she would be killed or she is warned of the direct consequences. And this leads a woman living in a psychological situation wherein if she doesn't get a boy child, she would steal from others or thinking of the direct consequences in her in-laws' house for delivering a girl child, she would go mad. At this juncture, it is submitted that every woman must have full freedom either to deliver the child or abort. The consent of the husband must be taken. What I mean here is that the women should play a dominant role in deciding whether to conceive or abort. At this juncture, I again repeat the words of the Andhra Pradesh High Court in T. Sarita vs. T. Venkata Subbaiah. I quote, "Women is not a vehicle to carry the load whenever the man wants," unquote. The people have taken full advantage of the technological advancement even